I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see you all here, and I'm even more excited to introduce and interview a very special Estonian artist. She grew up in a small town of Elva, and currently she resides in Los Angeles. She's worked with Tim Burton. She's performed at major network TV shows such as Dancing with the Stars. She's signed to Ultra Records, to Warner Chappell Publishing, and last December, a song that she co-wrote ended up on the top of the UK singles sales chart. So please welcome wonderful Kerli.
Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. I didn't know if anybody was going to come. I thought it was going to be strange, since we're all friends in Estonia and like we talk anyway.
You know, when I looked at your career for this interview, going back to your childhood, then I noticed that in one interview you said that, you know, with or without Fit Superstar, which was the competition that you won, I Will Make It. Was there ever any alternative besides becoming an artist and making it?
Well, you know, the definition of making it is kind of vague, but for me, it was never a question. I've never imagined myself doing anything else. It wasn't like a choice for me. It was just something that I always knew that I was born to do. And when you said that, you know, with or without this show, I would have done it, I think maybe that was one of the very first interviews where I was still like very young. It was 13 years ago when I got my first record deal. And, you know, it's the kind of the idea and the ego and the naivete of your youth when you just, you know, you're a special person in your town, so you think you're gonna go and take over the world. And like, it's kind of funny to look back at it, but I think it's actually like a really, really important driving force. The not knowing what's actually going on when you're young, you know, so you have these big dreams, and it's important to be naive.
Dr. Dre has said that you can learn it, but in order to be, you know, great at it, it has to be new. Do you believe in it?
What do you mean it has to be new?
You know, the thing is that you can kind of learn to be an artist, and you can do kind of okay, but in order to be like a true visionary, to be a truly great artist, it has to come from, you know, deep inside. You cannot really teach that to somebody.
Yeah, I don't think that you can manufacture the magic. But actually, I've been thinking about this a lot, and when we look at like the greatest performers of our time, like Michael Jackson and Beyonce, why they're so great is because they, both of them had psychopath parents that made them just train and train and train since they were 5 years old. By the time they're 20, of course they're incredible. You know, they just have a huge advantage against somebody that maybe has done it for 3 or 4 years only.
What was the dream in the first place? Was it a record deal? Just becoming a singer? What was it? What was the dream when you were a young kid?
I think for me, I grew up in a really small place, and it was kind of just always felt very gray and felt very limited. So I guess the dream was to kind of just to get out, and like the coolest way to do it seemed to be like the Spice Girls, you know, or whatever, all these artists. So honestly, I had, you know, rehearsed all these autographs with all these artist names when I was little, and it was always like Jessica or Emily or some American name. So I was really disappointed when I got signed to Swedish Universal and they told me that I had to keep Kerli. For me, that was like, that's not like a real artist name, that's some Estonian name. I want to be a real artist, you know. And you know, when I figured out that, oh, I guess nobody's actually going to give me their best hit songs because they're giving it to, you know, Beyonce or Britney or whatever, and I'm gonna actually have to write my own music. At first I was very shocked because it was never something that I intended to do.
You've had actually kind of the first person who discovered you, or was kind of your first A&R person, was actually your singing teacher, who loved your pitch and really worked on you. Do you think that have those singing teachers had any impact also on your future professional career? What was the relationship with them?
Actually, I did have a wonderful singing teacher. His name is Ursa Loja. And everybody that's gone to all the singing competitions in Estonia know all of his singing kids. Our relationship was always like a more of not like so much of a teacher-student relationship, but as two musicians. And I walked into his, studio when I was 14, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna do this professionally, and I really want to do this. So, help me." And we were just jamming. Honestly, we made jazz music. And I consider the first person to really introduce me to music business to be Lauri Laubre.
Okay. Are you a competitive person?
At this point, I don't really believe in competition at all. I think it's bullshit, and I think it really inhibits creativity. It inhibits going places, like exploring things together. I see that in business a lot, that like when I do writing sessions, in your publishing, you also have like different A&Rs. And I'm always trying to kind of just instill this idea of like the super team where everybody gets together and everybody brings their best, and let's all build each other up and let's all race together. But the reality is that people are competitive in the business, and I think it's very unfortunate.
I think you have to be competitive, because kind of the reason why I ask this is that you've taken part in, I think, various singing competitions, or 2, and you've kind of won them both. Was it because you had more talent, you wanted it more, or you've always kind of worked hard at your craft, at what you do?
The competitions were like for kids. So yeah, when you're a 5th grader and you don't win, it's like the world is ending. But then, as an adult, I don't think you have to be competitive, because like, what are we competing with? Like album sales, or like, how do you even compare like invisible vibrations going through your body? I mean, it's not even, there's no absolute truth. Like, we can't even say if it's good or bad. All we know is the speed comes on, and suddenly a lot of people are moving their body and they're feeling it, and they're calling the radio stations and they're wanting it. To me, like, there's nothing to do with competition here. I think ego is the biggest enemy of genius.
But who were the people that inspired you when you were young and growing up? Musicians, actors, scientists?
I think the first album that I truly like bought for myself and played and was just blown away was The Best of Björk. So that was when I put the headphones on and I was like, oh my God, I want to make people feel like this one day.
And what was it in Björk that really kind of got you going? Or was it the music? Was it also the kind of the art around her music, the personality, the fashion? What was it? And that she was from Iceland?
At that time, the internet was really new, so it wasn't really like everybody had a Facebook page and like whatever. So I didn't really know what she looked like. I had like it was cost me like $1. I got it from a Russian subway. It was like a knockoff CD. And it was the magic that we were talking about, that you can't manufacture, and you can have the best songwriters in the world in a room, and they can't write these songs. Actually,
that's where did you get the information? Or I mean, as you said, there wasn't no internet. Did you read? Did you got international music magazines? the local music press, TV?
No, I grew up in Elva, Estonia, of like 5,000 people in the woods. So no, there was nobody ordered me music magazines.
Radio,
you know?
TV?
No, actually, it was actually an accident that I got this CD because I think I had like 10 krones when I went to Russia, and it was like one CD was like 1 krone, and I bought 9 CDs, and I said, just give me something for the last krone, and he gave me the best of Björk.
Amazing. Are you but by the way, talking about like albums, are you a song or are you an album person?
I'd love to be an album person, but I mean the climate of the music these days is just because we have so much information getting thrown at us that it is the era of the song.
What's your favorite album of all time?
I'd probably be Björk's Homogenic or Sigur Rós Untitled.
Okay, so it's Icelandic.
Everything Icelandic.
Music.
I don't know why. They just must have something in the water there.
Do you remember the moment when you thought to yourself that you know I will be something, I will be a singer, I will make it? Do you remember that moment? Was there ever this exact moment?
I had a very, very strong feeling about what I was going to do in life, and I kept talking about it every day to my mother, to the point where my mother was like, you're kind of like a crazy utopian, like it's all of these things that you want to do, I'm not sure they're possible. But I had a very strong gut feeling of everything I was going to do always. But obviously I had no idea what it was going to be about and what it was going to take and like all of it,
Did you ever consider other forms of art, whether becoming an actress, becoming a fashion designer, and was that ever in your mind?
Well, actually I do hand make like most of my costumes, and I sketch the characters that like you can see in my music videos, and so I am a fashion designer. I'm also an actress, because it's not like I'm always having a great day and I want to give interviews.
But was it also in your childhood that you kind of you weren't only thinking about becoming a singer, but you also thought that maybe in the future I will design my own clothes?
No, I actually was never thinking about it, but I just got to a point where I realized that all of the things that I wanted to wear and all the people that I wanted to hire to make me things were way out of my reach, and I could never afford them. And my biggest pet peeve is people that half-ass things. So the people that I wanted to work with I couldn't afford, and then the other people I wasn't feeling it, so I was like, I guess I'm gonna have to I need these platform shoes, and they just don't exist yet in the world, so I just had to start making them,
By the way, you look really good today.
Thank you.
So,
Likewise.
what was, when did you actually think, well, in your childhood you were dreaming about all of these things, but when did you actually think that I think I'm actually going to make it? Was there ever a moment like this?
I don't know what you mean by making it. What does it mean?
What I mean by is when you're a child and you dream that maybe one day I will become maybe one day I will become a singer, professional singer. I can do that for living and do nothing else. And then there's one day somebody, whether you get a manager or you get an actual record deal that kind of somehow justifies or kind of adds that final point that says that you're actually on the right track and it's possible.
Yeah, I guess when I won the Fit Superstar and I got my first record deal as a prize, I thought, that's it. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna go. It's gonna be 3 months. I'm gonna be the biggest thing in the world. And I remember Gert Holmfred, the head back then of Universal Music Group, giving me the award and saying, "Oh, if you think that most of your work is behind you now, think again, because it's just about to begin." And I was thinking, you old man, you're on crack. Like, I'm ready, like, let's go, it's gonna happen, it's gonna go, like, I'm not like everybody else, and then it's been a really long time.
But who was the person who was kind of taking care of you at that time? Because, music business is a very scary business, and you were actually 15 years old. Did you already have a manager when you signed the deal?
Yes, Lauri Laubre was my manager, my first manager.
Describe a little about after you won Fit's Superstar competition. You sang Nelly Furtado's "I'm Like a Bird." You got signed to Universal in Sweden. What was it like? What were the kind of the initial? Do you remember the emotions? How did it feel like? You're a girl from Elva. You take part in this talent competition on TV, and suddenly you have a deal with a major label in Sweden. What was going on in your mind?
Well, I felt very much like, okay, so this is what's supposed to happen, and all of those things, of course, felt very big. Like getting a record deal felt like a really big deal, and now, like, when I look at the world, you know, it's like getting a record deal doesn't mean anything. Like, you're gonna have to do it by yourself.
But at that time...
At that time, obviously, it seemed like, yes, this is how you do it, and I'm on track, and I'm gonna do it, and it's gonna, you know... I had no idea what it was actually gonna be like.
When did you actually move to... when did you move to Sweden, actually?
I started... I got a publishing deal when I was 16 years old with Merlin Music in Sweden, so I started, like, traveling back and forth when I was, like, 16, and I did that for 2 years, and they helped me get signed to Island in New York.
So the publishing deal was the main reason that actually kind of got you to Sweden, not the record deal?
Yes, I actually became a writer before I actually became an artist.
Was the publishing deal signed before or after you signed the deal with Universal in Sweden?
Before.
Okay.
2 years before. So I spent like 2 years in Sweden just writing with every Swedish writer.
What was the plan with, I mean, you had Kerli and Lokatellis in Sweden. Who came up with that?
Oh God, I don't know. Honestly, I consider that like a really...
Something you don't want to talk about?
Unimportant part of my career, yeah.
Would you say that the Kerli and the Lokatellis part, or the entire kind of part that you spent in Sweden on Universal?
Actually, yes. I think the writing part was amazing for me as a teenager, but nothing actually came of that first record deal. I didn't release any music. The people who signed me got fired, and so it happens a lot that somebody signs you and you think, you know, you have this great team and you're loving everybody, but the business is just so much bigger than the one artist. So the guy that signed you gets fired, so the guy that didn't sign you has a big ego about, you know, business, so he doesn't want to push you because he can't take credit when you blow up for signing you. So it's just a lot of ego.
When you were at Merlin, and Merlin is a big production company and publishing. They write stuff for Madonna and Kylie and etc. etc. Am I right?
Well, Merlin doesn't exist anymore. They sold it.
But when you were at Merlin, how was it? Like, was it the first time you ever got kind of you know, into the professional songwriters company, and what did they actually, you know, what did they teach you? How was it?
I think you know, being with Merlin, it was really, really amazing times because I got a really good. I don't know even if it was advice. You know, I never thought about being a songwriter separately from being an artist, so I never really took it too seriously back then. But you know, you learn, so I'm really, really grateful that I got to just spend time in the studio and see how people work and how vocals like get cut and produced. And I think songwriting, just like everything else, is like, it's a craft, it's a skill that you learn, and if you want to be truly good at something, it's something that you have to practice every day.
What was kind of the main thing that you would kind of take with you from those Sweden years?
I think the main thing was actually it was really, really tough because I was, you know, from a really small town, and I thought that people that were nice to me were truly my friends. So it was very hurtful for me to realize that they weren't really my friends. So I had to kind of grow up really fast, and I was just I started traveling by myself. It was the first time like I ever got on a plane, you know, like I had never traveled anywhere. So it was like I had to just go and like grow up really fast.
What advice, like with all of your experience today, would you give to, you know, to that Kerli who, you know, signed the deal with Merlin, Universal, and went to Sweden for the first time?
I guess I would tell myself to take it more seriously.
Okay.
You know, because I wish I would have like, I was always just kind of looking at the clock. I kind of wanted to go to lunch and like kind of get out of the studio. You know, I was like stuck there because it was like kind of what I was doing. I was never really relishing those moments when I had the chance to actually be around like incredible writers, you know, and like, you know, I wish I would have started producing my own vocals 10 years ago.
Was it more about having fun and being in that moment, not necessarily thinking about your career?
Yes, that's the thing. You totally nailed it. I wasn't in the moment. I was rushing through it, you know. I was rushing over it because I thought I was heading towards this great thing, and this was just some petty thing that I had to do on the way, you know. And now I'm just realizing that there really is no destination. Like, you just have to be present in the journey all the time.
When did you actually, because I'm getting to the island deal, which is back then it was a massive news, because I think Estonian artist Maarja-Liis Ilus had after she participated at Eurovision Song Contest, I think she was like the first Estonian artist who got a major label deal with Universal in Sweden. And she was successful in some Asian countries, but you went on to sign a deal with Island Records, one of the most influential US label groups. How did it come about? How did they, first of all, who was the person from Ireland who kind of found out about you first?
There's this A&R, his name is Josh Sarabin.
Yeah.
He actually signed Lady Gaga to Island. He signed Avril Lavigne to Arista. Yeah, he just kind of was always coming to Sweden when I was writing, and he was always hearing my music, and a couple years, you know, went by, and he said, hey, I'd really like you to come and showcase to my boss.
So actually the relationship was I mean, it lasted a few years before he actually, you know, wanted you to showcase for, I think, L.A. Reid. Was L.A. Reid based in New York or L.A.?
New York.
Okay. How was it done? Did you
Honestly, I went to New York. They lost my suitcases. I didn't have anything to wear. I got some random dress. I went and I showcased with this guitar player a song that I had no lyrics for. And I told L.A. Reid, I hate pop music and I'm never gonna do it. And I don't want to be a part of it. And I don't like New York. I hate these big buildings and whatever. And then, you know, we left the meeting, and my manager back then, Lauri, said, you screwed it up, man. Like, you just lost your biggest chance in life. And 5 minutes later, he called back and said, I'm gonna sign Kerli.
That fast? So when did you move? Because you moved to US after that, and at first, as I understand, just to record the first album, that you kind of lived in New York. When did it happen? How fast after you made the deal with Island?
Yeah, it was really a fascinating time, because when I made my first album, it was still the time when the labels were spending a lot of money. So I spent like months there, and there was a time where I actually lived like in a penthouse on the 25th floor, like 2 bedrooms overlooking the 8th Avenue. It was like a glass wall. Like, it was really like how you imagine the music business from like the outside perspective. I wish back then I was smarter, and I just could have told them to give me the money to make the videos or spend it, you know, in a wiser way. But I thought that I felt very entitled, and I felt like, oh, that's the way it's supposed to be. And we made the album, and the album actually sat on a shelf for like 2 years.
How did it make you feel? I mean, you've made in your opinion?
It was very frustrating. It was very frustrating. And how actually my first album came out was I was already living in the States, and I had a friend that worked on MySpace. So he hooked me up with the featured artist spot. And he said, every person that writes you, you're going to have to write back. You're going to have to build your fan base. So I built my own fan base, and the label saw, oh, I guess she has something going on. So they started putting out my singles. But I had to do it. Nobody was going to do it for me.
Who was the one who said that, you know, you have to come and live in the States? Was it the kind of the label suggested it, or you just wanted to take that leap from Europe to US?
Yeah, they suggested, but yeah, I was definitely, you know, thrilled with the idea.
How long did it take to write and record Love Is Dead? It was the first album of yours.
It was kind of done over a couple of years.
Who chose the singles?
I think in the end, we agreed.
With the label that what should be kind of the single, etc.
Yeah, I guess there were some different ideas thrown around, and I didn't do some things that they would have wanted. There's a couple other songs that they wanted to release, and I actually wish that maybe back then I should have listened a little more. You know, there were songs on my album that I wanted to be, you know, I wanted them to be really alternative. You know, without understanding that there's no point of being on a major label and not making pop music. Like it's not smart.
What was their opinion or first reaction when you kind of presented them the songs or the artwork or your concept of yourself?
Well, you know, I created like a cartoon character, and I you know, I really wanted to create like a whole world. You know, I went to LA Read and I said, hey, look at this character that we created. This is comic books. This is computer games. This is a whole world. This is cartoons. This is, you know, this is everything. And they were just like, no, why can't you just be a hot girl on the cover of the album? And I was like, no, this is like a whole new way of like, you know, of doing things, how we could, you know, let's really create something new. And like, it just was completely over their heads at that time.
But they accepted it in the end.
Well, they accepted the cover, yes, but we could have built amazing things, but it was still the mindset that they had, that we're going to make money off music sales, which is like, in reality, you don't really make money off music sales, you know.
You also, on that album, Love Is Dead, you actually wrote one song with Guy Chambers, who, you know, Robbie Williams has said that he's as much Robbie Williams as himself. And he has written many hit songs for Robbie Williams. The song was The Creationist. What was it like to work with Guy Chambers? How did that song come about?
You know, songs just kind of happen. And at that time, I was very much into just like the divine inspiration and not so much of the craft of the writing. You know, I was just like, you know, I can't write every day. I'm not feeling it every day. I can't do it, you know. So with Guy, it just really, you know, panned out nicely. And obviously, like songwriters, like with the career this long and, you know, with the skill, they're incredible, and they're incredible people. And I think what keeps a lot of people that have been songwriters for a long time really relevant is that they're actually really open to the ideas that the younger people bring to the room. Like, there is no ego. There's no room for ego.
You know, I remember you know, I interviewed you first many years ago for my blog. I sent you an email. You sent me answers. It was wonderful. But I remember one thing that you kind of that you told me, and it was about the deal. And you said that the deal itself is not important, but the possibilities that it gives you. Looking back, you were a very wise person, and you still are, and I'm always kind of amazed at what you do. Looking back, did you expect more of this deal with Island? You know, I can't really like talk poorly of this deal with Island, because, you know, walking on air, and it really gave me a really good head start. And even though for them in when it comes to like America and the major label way of thinking, like that single was a failure and that album was a failure, but to me as an artist, you know, doing the kind of art that I really wanted to make at that point and winning that much was really, really, really great blessing. John Mayer was speaking at Berkeley once, and he said that you need to define success because otherwise you will miss it. And exactly what you said. Do you think about success and what it means to you?
To me, honestly, I measure success by how happy I feel. So if I'm really happy, there's been times in my life where I wasn't doing well on paper, you know. I mean, there's been times where I could barely pay my rent, and some of these times have been the happiest times of my life. And there's been times where I've had a lot more and I've not been happy. So I just really try to distance myself from how the world sees me, you know, and just try to keep it completely separate and not believe other people's perceptions of me, but just be like, you know, I'm a lucky person. I get to wake up every morning and make art, and I so far have managed to, you know, put food on the table, and that's really all I care about at this point. Seeing the, you know, the big major label business like really up close at this point, like I don't want to do it. To me, it's not worth it. Like having to bend over and having to compromise that much, to me it's not worth it. Like if that's the way I'm gonna get it, I don't want it.
Do you think when you're kind of a new emerging artist, do you think it's even reasonable to, you know, to go into the big business and sign a deal with a major label, or just kind of try to do it yourself and establish yourself as an artist before you go out there and start fighting for the big business?
I mean, I think that if you do get a chance and you're a young artist and you don't have like a particularly very great idea or like, you know, a great skill of writing or you know, promotion or whatever, I think it's very helpful and it's very important to stay open. And, you know, it might not work out the way that you imagine it, but just, you know, I think it's very helpful to be able to say, hey, pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm signed to this label. Even just, you know, getting in the room with the writers. Like when I was making, over the years, when I've been making my music, I mean, I've only been able to get in the room with these incredible writers because I've had that deal. Nobody's gonna put their day aside. They could be writing for Rihanna, you know? So they need kind of that guarantee, that phone call from the label saying, hey, we're really gonna go in for this girl. Would you do a session with her? So I don't think that when I was younger, I don't think that I was really appreciating these opportunities, and I don't think that I was really making the most of them, you know? I don't think I made friends as much as I should have, and I don't think that I was present as much as I should have been.
You're now signed to Ultra. Why did you make that deal? What did they give you? What do you expect to get out of it?
Honestly, I played them a bunch of music, and the first two singles they wanted to release were two of my favorite songs that I've done lately. Mm-hmm. So that's honestly all I cared about. I've just gotten to a point where I'd rather make really good sandwiches than the music that I don't believe in.
So have you ever thought about giving up and coming back home and, you know?
All the time. All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Who makes? Are you kind of the CEO of your business and your brand and everything that surrounds Kerli?
Yes, absolutely.
How's your? You have two managers.
Yes.
Do you have a lawyer?
Yes.
You have a big shot lawyer, I think, in LA.
Yes, New York.
New York, okay. You know, for a lot of artists, making music or trying to, you know, survive making just music is a constant struggle, and you've struggled.
Yeah, I wouldn't survive just being an artist.
But what kept you going?
I don't know. I just really have never imagined myself doing anything else.
Have you ever had to sacrifice, made any sacrifices for your career?
Well, you know, moving away from my family, which is a pretty like tight-knit family and a really big family, I think the times where I felt really, really alone have been like the price, you know, for being able to do what my heart longs for. But there's, I mean, with every gain, there's always a sacrifice.
Who has been your greatest supporter? Who has always said that, you know, Kerli, for you, you know, impossible is possible?
Me.
But there has to be, there always has to be, you know, people around you as well, somebody.
Yeah, actually, you know, as time goes by, I appreciate these people more and more. When I was young, again, like young, when I was really young, when I was younger, I thought that, you know, of course everybody was going to believe in me, because why wouldn't they? And then, you know, now I look back at my like career of 13 years and I see I've actually maybe had like, let's say 3-4 people, 4 or 5 people that have actually truly been there for me. And sometimes, and it's even in life with like the simplest things, I don't think people tell each other enough. It's like when you see somebody struggling with like, you know, faith in themselves, like take that second and tell them that it's gonna work out. You know, I had these people in my life and like either they were lying to me or they were not lying to me, but I was like, do you believe in me? They were like, yes, of course I believe in me, you know, in you. And just there were times where just one sentence that somebody told me kept me really going for years.
Because you once said that it's for you, it's actually like a struggle to find people who would kind of say that to you, that, you know, impossible is possible, and that you constantly have to convince people that that, you know, these things are actually possible. Do you understand?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of the current Estonian music scene? Because you've always supported Estonian talent, whether music, fashion. You've always supported Estonian artists. What do you think of the current music scene in Estonia?
I think that the music scene in Estonia is really exciting, and I think that the only thing really holding us back as a country in general, and also, you know, the music scene is the mindset that there are limits, because there really aren't any limits. Like if enough people come together and say, hey, we could be the next Iceland, you know, we could be the next Berlin. We have the resources, we have the talent, we have incredible musicians, we have incredible designers. The only thing that we need now is just coming together and really, you know, believing that we can do it, that we can, you know, make some noise.
How often actually like Estonian artists or designers contact you and you know, ask for advice or ask for some contacts, or does it ever happen?
Well, it doesn't happen that often. What happens is like sometimes people will write that have like written one song and then they want like the feedback on that song, and just I just want to say you have to write 300 more, to be honest. And your biggest song might not even be your best song. It's just like for something to actually get through, there's 20 people that have to say yes to the song, 20 people that have to put their signature that they're gonna invest in it, you know. And it's these moments, you know. My biggest song, Skyscraper, I wrote that song 3 years ago for my own album, and my label threw it in the trash and said it was no good. So it was just sitting on the shelf until somebody heard it, and then enough people signed off on it, and then there was this story that the America loves of this girl just coming out of the rehab, and now she's singing how she's rising from the ashes, and like it was just all of like, it was in English I guess it's called kismet, when just everything magically comes together. But for those magic moments, like, do I think it's absolutely the best song I've ever written? No, it's probably not the best song I've written.
How did this song happen? When did you write it? What was the story behind you writing Skyscraper?
It was just one of these. It was just one of these times I was in the studio with these writers, Toby Gadd and Lindy Robbins. And Lindy is. It's really funny because all of these songs that you hear on the radio are actually, even when they're like super sexy in the club, they're usually written like by like a 50-year-old person, and they just get together and they're like, oh, by the way, I have to leave at 4. You know, my kids are waiting, and they just get like there with their laptop and their little notepad, and they'll do it. You know, so it's really funny that it's not glamorous at all behind the scenes. And Lindy came to the studio and she said, "Hey, I really think we should write this song called Skyscraper." And the producer Toby said, "No, Lindy, that's a retarded idea called Skyscraper." But she just kind of kept. She had a strong feeling about it. She just kind of kept, you know, coming back. So I pulled actually up a picture of like a skyscraper with in the scenery where like the world had ended around it, and there's just one building standing. And we actually wrote that picture. We wrote that song after a picture. There was like the sun was the first rays of sun were just coming through, and you know.
How did you find out that that the song had gone to #1 in UK?
I think you told me.
Was it really?
I think you emailed me.
Because I was when I heard about it that the Skyscraper is kind of climbing up the charts in UK, then I was just so, I don't know, excited.
Honestly, I was just so tired and jaded at that point that I really didn't feel anything.
About that particular
song? I didn't
song.
feel anything because it had just been so long and it had gotten rejected so much, you know, that by the time you get this, like, some kind of success, like, it just takes so much that I was just already, like, I'm already breathless on the ground. Honestly, I don't care.
But when you wrote that song, did you feel that it's something special?
Actually, no, I didn't have, like, a particularly special feeling about it. I thought it was good, and we were having a lot of fun in the studio, and like when we were recording it, we were really feeling it, but I wasn't gonna, and then suddenly, of course, when the other artist wanted to cut the song, then suddenly my label started believing in the song, you know, like the typical of just everybody's looking over their shoulder for somebody else's opinion because nobody has the balls to trust their gut, you know, and go for it and take risks. So then, you know, and they were like, "Oh, should we keep it? Should we keep it?" And I was like, "No, let's not keep it. Let's give it away. Let her have it."
What's the best song you've written so far?
I think the best song I've written so far is gonna be one of my next singles.
Okay, what's can you reveal the title?
No.
How do you write music? You play piano? Do you play any other instruments?
I play piano. I mean, I wouldn't really call it playing the piano. It's very basic skill that I have, but you know, enough to kind of make, you know, the first demos, and I write a lot on tracks, which I actually really like because I focused most of my energy on songwriting. So I like when I already get I like to already, you know, get the backing track, and then I'm very disciplined about songwriting. I write every day, 7 days a week, and it's just, for me, it's like just very like training for the Olympics, you know. It's like I go skiing every day, all day, and that's just what you do. And actually seeing how people around me work, I don't think that people generally have even any idea of the work ethic that it actually takes to get any results. You know, I've started working, I always used to just like to write by myself, you know, but I think that it's actually really fun. For my artist thing, I write by myself only, but when I go do sessions, when I just do, you know, songs for sale, whatever, I think the more the merrier. And it's like the more comfortable you get in your craft, the more you can just let other people do their thing, and you're just, the best idea is gonna win. It doesn't have to be yours, you know, but it takes a while to get over that ego of thinking that your divine idea, you know, must come and bring something to the world.
What are the key factors, in your opinion, that an artist needs in today's environment? Like patience, persistence, what it is?
Patience, persistence are a good one. I think really it all comes down to work ethic. Because if you're gonna write, if you have any talent and you're gonna write for 10 years, you're gonna become a writer who doesn't need to be inspired to write a good song. is it gonna be like the most magical, most epic? No, like obviously the most magical ones are still when the magic shows up too, but you show up every day, you know? So just and I think flexibility is very, very important in business. So I'm just looking at it like at this point, I just wanna make magic and make friends.
You left Estonia many years ago, and half of your life you've actually lived abroad. But have you ever thought about kind of moving back here, or kind of LA is the place where you need to be in order to be successful as a songwriter, or just the environment is important for your business?
Yeah, it definitely is, and even beyond the fact that most of the songwriters, I mean, a lot of them are moving to LA just because of the cost of the living is, I mean, to be honest, in Estonia, I don't even go to buy anything because things are so expensive here. So just the cost of living in LA, and like you can just go to free yoga in the canyon and whatever. But I think most importantly, what I love about LA is that everybody that's there is there to really, really like go for it. So I'm surrounded every day by people that are, writers that are 25 years old that are doing 2 sessions every day, 7 days a week. And some people are doing 3 sessions every day. So I love being surrounded by that drive.
About Tallinn Music Week, did you have any chance to see any acts during the festival?
Yes, we actually saw a couple acts yesterday.
So
I thought Instrumenti was really amazing, and I'd like to see them not in a shopping center.
Oh, fantastic. Anyways, we have just a little time left, and I would definitely like you all to ask some questions from Kerli. So we have a microphone. Just yes, please, Ramunas.
Hello, Kerli. Nice to see you again. I actually interviewed you when you won First Superstar, and you were already very ambitious and knew what you were doing. So nice to see you succeeding.
Thank you.
How many? 12 years down the line or something?
13.
Okay. I just came in the middle of this conversation, so I'm not sure. Maybe that subject has been covered, but maybe that's a bit of a tricky one. There are quite a few websites who are basically saying that Lady Gaga royally ripped off some of your ideas when it comes to style and visual parts. So I would be interested in hearing your opinion on that.
Yes, she did.
I mean, do you know that for sure? Do you know that?
Yes, I met her. I met her actually before she was famous, and she didn't look like me back then.
And
I'm just saying, I know that politically I should be all correct, but honestly, I'm so over being politically correct. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, I've just gotten to a point where it's like, we're just all here for like maximum 80, 90 years, and even if you're the Beatles, like 200 years, nobody's gonna know who you are, so there's no big things. And at this point, I just wanna be authentic, and I wanna be honest. And yes, a lot of my visual ideas have gotten I've even done experiments where I've done like, you know what, I'm gonna do my hair like neon yellow and do like a glitter heart over my eye, and nobody's gonna rip that off. And obviously, like, I see it the next day. Like, every person needs to have the vision for themselves. So yes, I'm gonna go to Asia. I don't know when, but I'm definitely gonna go.
Good. Fantastic.
Thank you.
And it was, please.
Aitäh. Aitäh teile!